right, so we did a few questions yesterday. We're going to finish them today. So let's take a look at we'll do number 7 next. What should we do first for number 7?
Plus 24.
Add 24 to move it to the other side. Perfect, because we have to get the x to the second power all by itself. So we're going to add 24. So we get x squared is equal to, what's 40 plus 24? 64. Then what do we do?
Square root.
Square root both sides. So we get x is equal to what? Just 8?
Positive minus.
Plus or minus 8. Awesome. Don't forget, whenever you take the square root of both sides, you need that plus or minus sign. What about for number 10?
Square root.
Awesome. Since that parentheses squared is already all by itself, we're going to take the square root of both sides to cancel out with the squared. So x minus 4 is equal to, what's the square root of 0?
0.
Do we need the plus or minus if it's 0?
No.
Nope, just 0. And
Don't get the square root of 4.
yeah, because the square root is just canceling out with the squared part.
Wow.
Now from here, we still have to solve, so what would we do next?
Plus 4.
Add 4 to move it to the other side. So x is equal to 4. Any questions on this one? All right, let's go back up to 6 on the right side. What should we do first?
Subtract 10.
Subtract 10, awesome. So we have 2x squared is equal to negative 10. What do we do next? Divide by 2, perfect. So x squared is equal to, what's negative 10 divided by 2? Negative 5. Then what do we do?
Square root.
Square root. Can I take the square root of negative 5?
No.
What would our answer here be? What would our answer here be? If I had x squared, can I square a number and it end up being a negative number?
No.
No, so what do you think our answer is?
X equals 5. Positive negative 5.
What'd you say? Not possible or no solution. So if you take the square root of a negative number, we can't do that, so our answer would be no solution. Or not possible is fine. Any questions here? All right, for number 9, what should we do first?
Subtract 25.
Perfect, subtract 25. 25 minus 25 would be? 0. Then what? We need to get that x squared all by itself. So what do we do if it's being multiplied by a negative?
Negative positive.
Divide by a negative. We can divide by negative 1. So x squared is equal to, it's 0 divided by negative 1.
Positive means 0.
Still just 0. And then what do we do?
Square root.
Take the square root. What's the square root of 0?
0.
0. So x is equal to 0. Yes. Let's say, for example, we had negative x squared is equal to negative 9. What would we do here to solve? So we want to get the x squared all by itself, so we divide by negative 1 here. So x squared would be equal to positive 9, then we take the square root. So it's kind of the same thing. If we take the square root here, what does x equal?
3.
Just 3?
Positive minus.
Positive or negative 3. Don't forget, when you take the square root of both sides, you need the plus or minus, except when it's 0, because there's no such thing as positive 0 and negative 0. All right, let's do number 12. What should we do first?
Square root.
Square root. Awesome. The parentheses squared is already all by itself, so we take the square root of both sides. So it cancels out with the squared. So we have 3x plus 1 is equal to what? 7. Just 7? positive or negative 7? Because we're taking the square root of both sides, we need that plus or minus. Now here, we can solve it more, but it's equal to two different things, so we got to split it up into two equations. I'm going to do this on the side over here so we have more room. But we want to split it up. Let me rewrite it. We have 3x plus 1 is equal to plus or minus 7. So we're going to split up the positive or negative 7. So we have 3x plus 1 is equal to positive 7. And 3x plus 1 is equal to negative 7. Now let's solve. What would we do next to solve the equation on the left? Subtract 1, perfect. So 3x is equal to 6. Then what? Divide by 3, bless you. So x is equal to 2. Same thing in the second equation, we're going to subtract 1. What's negative 7 minus 1? Awesome, negative 8. Then we divide by 3. Can I divide negative 8 by 3? No, so we can just leave it as negative 8 over 3. It's okay if we leave it as a fraction. Bless you. So those would be our two answers for number 12. All right, let's go to, we did 13 together, let's do 14. What should we do first for 14? Add 8. So x squared is equal to 10 plus 8, which would be 18. Then what do we do? Square root both sides. So x is equal to what? Positive or negative? Square root 18. We don't have, 18 is not a perfect square, so it doesn't simplify into a perfect square, so we can just leave it as the square root of 18. We're not evaluating the square root yet here, so we need to leave the square root in our answer, but don't forget the plus or minus sign. So we usually get rid of the square root in our answer when we're doing something like the square root of 64, and we know that the answer is 8. Here we're not evaluating the square root, so we leave the square root in our answer. Yeah. So for 15, what should we do first? Add 1. So 3x squared is equal to 15. What do we do next? Divide by 3. So x squared is equal to what? 5. And then what do we do? Square root both sides. So what does x equal? Thank you. X is equal to positive or negative square root 5. Awesome. All right, let's look at 16. It says describe and correct the error in solving the equation using square roots. So here, let's just write it here and we'll solve it ourselves. So x squared minus 9 is equal to 16. What would we do first to solve this? Awesome. We have to add 9 first before we take the square root. So we're going to add 9. So x squared is equal to 25. And then what? Square root both sides. So what does x equal? Just 5? Positive or negative 5. Awesome. Here I think that they square rooted everything, which you cannot do that. Doesn't work that way. That's why we always need to isolate this x squared first. So always, always, always need to isolate the x squared first. With these questions, you can always take your answer and plug it back in. If I had 5 or negative 5 as my answer, I could plug it back into the x squared. What's 5 to the second power? 25, and 25 minus 9? 16. So we get 16 equals 16, which we know that we did the work right. If you plug it back in and check your answer, it's going to equal the same thing. Any questions here? We'll go down the left side and then do the right side. So looking at the next question on the left side. What would we do to solve here? Set them both equal to 0. So 3r plus 9 equals 0, and r minus 5 equals 0. Let's solve the first one first. What would we do to solve our first equation? Awesome, subtract 9. So 3r is equal to negative 9, and then what? Divide by 3. So r is equal to? Negative 3, perfect. What would we do to solve the second equation? Add 5. So r is equal to? 5. So those would be our two answers. Questions here? All right, let's look at the next one. What do we do first to solve? Set them both equal to 0. Perfect. So 2h minus 7 is equal to 0, and 5h minus 4 is equal to 0. So to solve the first one, I'm going to add 7 first. 2h is equal to 7. What would we do next? Divide by 2. So h is equal to 7 over 2. You can simplify the fraction if you want. If you want to change it into a mixed number, but you don't have to. You can leave it as an improper fraction. This would be fine. What would I do to solve the second equation? Add 4. So 5h is equal to 4. Then what? Divide by 5. So h is equal to 4 over 5. We can just leave it as a fraction. All right, next one. What would we do first to solve? Set them both equal to 0. So y minus 10 is equal to 0. Add 10 to move it to the other side, so y is equal to 10. Next one, we have 5y plus 6 is equal to 0. What would we do first to solve? Subtract 6. So 5y is equal to negative 6, and then what? Divide by 5. So y is equal to negative 6 over 5. And 10. All right, that was the last one on that page. Let's go to the next slide, the next side. What would we do first to solve? Set them both equal to 0. 5n plus 7 equals 0, and n minus 3 equals 0. Dylan, what would I do first to solve the first equation? Do what to the 7? Subtract the 7. Awesome. So 5n is equal to negative 7. What would we do next? Divide by 5. So n is equal to negative 7 over 5. Perfect. Chloe, what would we do first for the second equation? Add 3. So what does n equal? What does n equal? 3. Perfect. Questions here? In the next one, Mia, what would we do first to solve? What do we do with zeros? So we set them equal to 0. So we have 5w plus 10 is equal to 0. And 6w minus 2 is equal to 0. Sophia, what would we do next to solve the first equation? Minus 10. So 5w is equal to negative 10. And then what? Divide by 5. So what does w equal? Negative 2. Perfect. Ellie, what would we do next to solve the second equation? Add 2 to both sides. So 6w is equal to 2. What would we do next? Alvin, what would we do next? Divide by 6. So W is equal to, can we simplify 2 over 6? Awesome. We can divide them both by 2. So it simplifies to 1 over 3. Perfect. So 2 answers are -2 and 1 over 3. So let's look at the next one. We're going to set them both equal to 0. So 6g minus 3 equals 0. And g minus 9 equals 0. Bless you. Amanda, what would we do first to solve the first equation? Add 3 to move it to the other side. Perfect. 6g is equal to 3. Then what would we do? Divide by 6. So g is equal to, how can we simplify 3 over 6? Awesome. We're going to divide them both by 3. So we get 1 over 2. Perfect. And then, John, what would we do to solve the next equation?
Add 9.
Awesome. Add 9. So g is equal to 9. Perfect. Any questions here? All right, last one. We're going to set them both equal to 0. 3w plus 9 equals 0. And 2w plus 11 equals 0. Nestor, what would we do first to solve the first equation? Subtract 9. So 3w equals -9. Then what do we do? Divide by 3. So what does w equal? -3. Perfect. Samantha, what would we do next to solve the second equation? Subtract 11. So 2w is equal to -11. Then what? Divide by 2. So w is equal to, can I simplify -11 over 2? Nope, so we can just leave it as -11 over 2. Perfect. Good job, guys.